I normally don't make videos like this because I spend most of the time on my channel playing the games rather than talking about them. But I did not play this game on my channel. I only posted one video about it before this one, and it still needs to be talked about. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is in my top 3 greatest games of all time. Story-wise, it is magnificent. The soundtrack is brilliant. I have not been so emotionally moved by a video game since I first played The Last of Us. And that is a bold statement for me to make for myself because The Last of Us is a massive part of who I was growing up. My father introduced it to me. It's my all-time favorite game. Nothing has topped it since I played it for the very first time. I have so much, like, stuff of The Last of Us, including this poster from Halloween Horror Nights, but that's beside the point. Clair Obscur had me sitting up awake at night at about 3 in the morning, contemplating if the story and the soundtrack of it made it better than The Last of Us. And after some careful thought, I decided, no, it's not better than The Last of Us. The Last of Us, for me, just is going to be extremely difficult to top. But Expedition 33 is the closest a game has come to ever topping that for me. And for that reason, in my list of top 10, I put it in the number 2 spot, just above Skyrim, which is also a very big part of me growing up, who I was as a person when I was in middle and high school. That was one of the biggest games of my childhood. I have a bunch of posters and merchandise of that as well. Expedition 33, man, is just, it's captivating in a way that I haven't seen in a video game in a very long time. And I don't branch out often, so maybe my opinion doesn't matter much to most of you. I stick to a lot of very hyper-specific genres, but this game, man, is just, it's something else. For anyone wondering what this game is about, I am going to spoil a little bit in the parts coming up, so be wary if you plan on playing the game for yourself or you're interested in playing it or watching it. The game is basically about, there is this monolith that sits on an island in the middle of the ocean on the half of a continent that split away in this event called the Fracture that happened several decades prior to the events of the story. So the Fracture split this city, Lumiere, in two, and the second half of Lumiere floated off into the water, and this monolith is now sitting in the middle of the second half of the island, and there is this being, this eldritch-looking giant woman that sits in like a crying position at the bottom of the monolith, and her name is the Paintress. Every year, she wakes up and she paints a number on this monolith. At the beginning of the game, she paints the number 33. And everyone who is that age or older dies. They fade away into rose petals, they turn into dust, and they just vanish. Nobody knows if they're dead, nobody knows where they go, but it's assumed that they die. Everybody's gone. So now after the 33s die, the oldest person in the entire city is 32 years old. Now after every single gommage, which is the name of this mass vanishing that happens, they send out an expedition across the water to the second island. And the expedition's goal is to make it to the monolith and kill the Paintress so that a gommage never happens again. This year, they are sending out Expedition 33, named after the 33-year-olds that have died. And of that expedition consists of 2 of our main characters, Gustav, who you play as for the first act, and Maëlle, who is like Gustav's adopted younger sister. There's also some other characters that you play as in the game that come from the expedition, like Ciel and Lune. They all have their different abilities, and you meet them later in the game. Now, the game is turn-based, which automatically turns off a lot of people from wanting to play it, because I did not know this until I started playing Clair Obscur, and I looked up some stuff about it, but there is a large majority of people in the gaming space who just hate turn-based games. Like, you see people roll their eyes or sigh at the thought of playing a turn-based game like Baldur's Gate or Clair Obscur or something along those lines. And I didn't know it was so hated when I first played Expedition 33. It's just, it seems like a lot of people just don't like any turn-based game whatsoever, regardless of how new and how refreshing it is. I jumped into Clair Obscur. The only turn-based game having played before that was Baldur's Gate 3, which Baldur's Gate 3 is based off of the Dungeons & Dragons 5e system. Clair Obscur is based off of its new system. Basically, in order to do anything except basic attacks, you need action points. You can have anywhere from 1 to 9 action points on you at a time. You can also have 0, depending on certain circumstances. But you can have a maximum of 9 at a time. And you can use those action points to perform a long-range shooting attack, because every character has, like, they can shoot rays out of their hands, or they have a gun they can use. So you can do free aim attacks. If you do a basic attack with just your melee weapon, you gain an action point to use on your next turn. Now, every character can have up to 6 skills equipped at a time, and those skills, consume anywhere from 1 to 9 action points to use per cast. So it's about managing your action point economy, managing your skills, and so on and so forth. And then you also get these things called Pictos and Luminas. So Pictos are like perks that you can put on your character, and they'll do things like 25% more damage with free aiming, some simple stuff like that. And then some of them later on can get pretty crazy and pretty circumstantial. And the game is very free about the way that you can balance and combine these Pictos to make really, really good loadouts. And then you also get things called Luminas, where once you win 4 battles with a Pictos equipped, you then do not have to have it equipped in a Pictos slot in order to use it. You can instead spend Lumina points, which are like perk points separate from perks. So each character can only have 3 Pictos equipped at a time, and each Pictos can only be equipped by 1 character at a time. So that free aim one, where it's 25% more damage on free aim, if I put that on Gustav, only Gustav can have it on in one of his 3 slots. And now none of the other characters can put that one in one of their 3 slots. But then once I win 4 battles with Gustav having that Pictos equipped, I can then spend the Lumina points for each person. It might be like 3 to 5 Lumina points. And if they have enough, I can go to every single character and I can equip the ability of that Pictos using Lumina points without using a Pictos slot. Now I can still keep it attached to Gustav even after winning 4 battles with it in one of my Pictos slots, and the perk of that is you get bonuses to a certain stat. So if you have it equipped in a Pictos slot, you might get more health or more speed by having it in your Pictos slot, which you don't get a stat buff if you have it equipped using Lumina rather than Pictos. But then if I have it equipped as Gustav in my Pictos, and I've unlocked it as a Lumina, I can put it on all of my other characters as Lumina, using Lumina points, so they don't get the stat buff, but they still get the ability of it. It's pretty complex starting out. The tutorial, would explain it better than I can, but it took me a little bit to get used to it. But the game is just, it's very, very intricately thought out and interesting and refreshing the way that it introduces the fighting system. And not only that, but they make it more engaging than most turn-based games, which is what a lot of people say they hate about turn-based games, is when it's not their turn, they just have to sit there twiddling their thumbs and waiting for all other turns to be done before they can go again, and they can't do anything about it. In this game, on other characters' turns, so there's up to 3 party members on your side at once, and you control all of them. And then when it gets to the enemy's turns, there can only be 3 enemies at once on the other side. So all fights are 3v3 maximum. And while the enemies are going, you can dodge or parry during the enemy's attacks. Dodging is much more lenient. It has a much greater window of opportunity, and it's easier to do. Parrying is much more refined and intricate. You have to be right down to the second in order to do it. But when you hit dodges, you're just dodging out of the way of the attack. If you parry every single one of an enemy's swings, so like if they swing 5 times in one attack action, and you parry all 5 of their swings, you perform a counterattack, which can then do more damage. But you only get the counterattack if you parry all of its swings. So if an enemy swings at you 10 times, and you hit the first 7, miss the 8th, and then hit the 9th and 10th, you don't get the counterattack because you missed one. If you go all the way through the first 9 and then miss the 10th, you don't get the counterattack because you missed one. So parrying is only rewarded if you do it on all of the swings perfectly. And if you miss the parry, you take the damage anyway. So it's really on your turn, you actually get to like focus in and try to parry and dodge while it's not your turn. So it gives you more of a say in how combat goes. Because if you're really good at parrying and you're really good at dodging, especially parrying, you kill the enemy quicker and you'll never take damage at all. If you get the parry windows down perfectly, or you can get sound or visual cues down to a T, and you can parry right on time every single time, you'll never take damage. So it's pretty interesting to see how this new system works. But it's, again, I was blown aback by it. And just coupled with the gameplay, the story, and the soundtrack, I was just completely taken aback by this game. Now I'm going to put some songs up on the screen from the soundtrack of this game. The composer for this soundtrack is named Lorian Testard, and this is actually his first game that he has ever produced music for. He was a music producer from before this, but I think he did his own freelance music on SoundCloud. The developers of the game pulled him aside and were like, hey, want to work on a video game OST? And he was like, yeah, sure. And then they casually just made one of the greatest OSTs I've ever heard. Again, I put some on the screen of some of my favorite songs, but it's just crazy how well planned and well composed the music of this game is. And it's not only the first time the composer has ever made music for a big project like this, it's the first video game that this company has ever made. So the company that developed Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is called Sandfall Interactive. This is their very first game, and two of the leads, I think the two CEOs, are previous Ubisoft employees, and they left Ubisoft to pursue their own creative projects and do their own creative liberty with their own stuff. And by God, was it one of the greatest decisions that a game developer has ever made, because it just proves that, you know, a small indie company like this, without the huge resources that a large company like Ubisoft has, can make AAA, quadruple A, quintuple A titles without those assets present for a big company like Ubisoft or Bethesda or EA or id Software or something like that. And it's just phenomenal to see. So you get through the story, you're playing as Gustav, you're getting closer to Mael and to Lune and Ciel, and you're playing through the story. And again, there's going to be a lot of spoilers coming up. You get to the end of Act 1, and there's this man on the island named Renoir. You don't find out his name until like the beginning of Act 2. He's referred to as the white-haired man. And he is like super powerful, and upon landing on the island, he murders like 90% of your squad. And so you finally learn about him, and you get to the end of Act 1, and he kills Gustav. So you've been playing as Gustav for the entirety of Act 1, like 10 hours worth of gameplay or something like that. And Renoir just comes in and shoots him through the chest, and then just stabs him, and he's dead. Gustav's gone. You start the second act playing as someone named Verso, where if you've been paying attention throughout the game, if you've been playing it, you'll get little inklings that like Verso is well known throughout the world. And you start playing as Verso, and you learn a little bit more about this world and everything that's in it. You learn that Renoir, the white-haired man, is Verso's father, and the reason he kills expeditioners is because he's immortal, and he believes his immortality is a gift from the Paintress. And Renoir and Verso were both part of the very first expedition, Expedition 0, which happened 67 years prior to the events of the story. So he's stopping the expeditioners from killing the Paintress, because then he gets to live forever. Verso is also immortal because of the Paintress, but he doesn't want to live forever because he says he's buried too many of his friends and it's starting to get tiring, and he wants to help the expeditioners take down the Paintress still, especially since he was part of the original expedition, which Renoir was the commander of the first expedition, but he would rather live forever than see the Paintress die. So you continue going throughout the game, you get to the end of Act 2, and you defeat the Paintress. And you think everything's fine, you think everything's good, and before you defeat the Paintress throughout the game, you've been seeing that Mael, Gustav's adopted little sister, who's 15 years old, by the way, has been having like these nightmares, seeing these other people throughout the island that are like related to Renoir. And there's this one girl named Alicia that looks exactly like Mael. The only difference is Alicia's face is burnt, and she wears like a half mask like that over that part of her face. So you can't see most of the burning on her face. But they look extremely alike. And Mael is the only one who's having these visions or these nightmares where like everything else turns around her, turns black and white and freezes in time, and she's the only one that can move. And then Renoir is there and Alicia is there, and they're talking to her, like saying everything is her fault or something like that. And it's so confusing to see until you get to the end of Act 2 and you defeat the Paintress. And you get back to Lumiere, the city. And Verso takes out a letter that was given to him at some point in the story during a cutscene by his younger sister, Alicia. Alicia is Renoir's daughter, youngest daughter. And you read the letter, and you find out that the Paintress is Verso's mother, Renoir's wife. And the Paintress is not the one causing the gommage. It's actually Renoir. But it's not this Renoir that you are seeing. You find out that the world you have been playing in this entire time, these characters that you have been playing as and getting attached to, and this whole intricately thought out world is inside of a painting. And outside of this painting, in the real world, there is a real family known as the Descenders. Renoir is the father, the mother is the paintress, her real name is Aline, and they have 3 children. Clair, the oldest sister, Verso, the middle brother, and Alicia, the youngest sister. At some point before the fracture happened in the painted world, there was a fire in the Descender family's home, and Alicia, the youngest sister, was supposed to die, and the middle brother Verso saved her life and died himself. So that's why Alicia's face is all burnt. Verso dying threw the family into such a huge fit of grief and survivor's guilt that the mother went into this canvas, which is made of this like magic called chroma. And in the real world, they don't elaborate on it, but there's like this society called the Painters where they can magically paint new worlds just with canvases and brushes, and then enter those worlds as their gods and do whatever they want in them. But they don't elaborate on it as well. It's like a complete mystery. But Verso, as a child, was a very skilled painter, and then he died. So Aline, the mother, finds one of his childhood paintings, goes into it, seals herself inside, and recreates her entire family. The Renoir you see killing all the expeditioners in the painting is her painted version of her husband. The Alicia you see with the mask on, that shows up in black and white, torturing Maëlle, is the painted version of Alicia. Aline traps herself inside of this painting, and Renoir eventually, the real Renoir, is trying to get his wife out of the painting because in the real world, the longer your consciousness is projected into a painting, the quicker your body ages exponentially. So, like, if you enter the painting for 20 years, you could come out and your body could have aged 50. But if you're in the painting for only an hour, you come out and your body's exactly the same. So it's like the longer you stay inside the painting in normal time, the more exponentially faster the rapid decay of your body gets. So Renoir is... the real Renoir is trying to bring his wife out of the painting, and she's created this fake version of her family not only to deal with her grief, but to keep her real family from being able to pull her out. And the number that the paintress is writing on the monolith is not the number saying, this is who's gonna die. It's a countdown, because the number started, I think, from like 80-something, and is counting down by 1 pretty much every year. And when it hits 0, that's the world that's gonna end. And the gommage that's killing everyone is being caused by real Renoir, the actual father of the Descender family, trying to systematically destroy the painting as Aline gets weaker, so that he can force her out of the painting, so that the family can be whole again and grieve Verso, the real Verso. Because the Verso you're playing as in the Act 2 is also the painted Verso, which he does not even find out until later on. So you defeat the paintress, you get back to Lumiere, and everyone gommages. Everyone in the city disappears except Verso. And then Maëlle comes back. Maëlle comes back with all of her memories of Alicia, and she says it's weird because she has memories of 2 different childhoods, one inside the painting and one outside of it. Because it's kind of confusing with the idea of Maëlle, but when Alicia, the burn victim daughter of the real world, tried to enter the painting, she got overwhelmed by her mother's chroma and was reborn as Maëlle in the city of Lumiere as one of its citizens, having forgotten all of her memories of the real world. And so Maëlle comes back. She now has white hair, which is how her hair is supposed to look, and she remembers all of her memories. She remembers that she is a painter and that she can bring back people who have gommaged. So she goes to her father, her real father, who has now put himself in the painting, which is another thing I forgot to mention. There's this entity that's helping you out throughout the game called the Curator. He's the one who's allowing you to upgrade your perk points, add perk points to yourself, upgrade your potions to heal and stuff like that, upgrade your weapons. The Curator is his name. You find out that the Curator is real Renoir's persona, and he's been traveling with the party this whole time undercover, helping you upgrade your shit so that you can kill the paintress, so that he can get his wife back. And you don't find out it's the real Renoir until after you kill the paintress. So Maëlle now goes up to Renoir, who she's been talking about killing this entire time for murdering Gustave, and now she's talking to him just like they're a family, because she remembers that he's her father. And you find out that even though the paintress has been knocked out of the painting, and there's nothing preventing the gommage anymore, Renoir still wants to destroy the painting. And Maëlle wanted to try and convince her father to leave the painting up now because it poses no threat. But Renoir was like, the entire point of me destroying the painting was to have our family together again so that we could grieve over Verso and be, as whole as we can be once more. You are going to lose yourself if you stay inside the painting, and I don't want you to. So a bunch more things happen. You find out that the real enemy is Renoir. You get to the end. You fight Renoir. You fight some more of his creations, which is literally the name of a creature, creation. You get to the end. You defeat Renoir. And at the end, he opens like a door where you can see the real Aline's body becoming fragile. Hence why he wants to destroy the painting, because she's so grief-stricken, she's trying to come back into the painting already, even after having left it. And the exponential decay of your body will stay the same if you leave and re-enter quickly. So if I'm in there for 20 years and my body's aged 50 years, and then I leave for a day in real life, and then I immediately enter back in, the same rate of decay that my body has been going at will automatically resume right there. So he shows Aline's body, and she's like, she's fragile, she's dying. This is what's happening by leaving this painting open. She's gonna come back, she won't stop. And the painted Verso, who's believed up until now that he's real, is seeing this, and he's like, what is my purpose? What is my meaning? I was created to grieve someone else. I'm like, why am I even alive? And so he goes into this, through this door, and you're in this little like pocket dimension, and you find out that the reason the painting is still alive is because the last sliver of the real Verso's soul as a little boy is inside of this pocket dimension, continuing to paint the universe. So Verso and Maëlle enter, and they start arguing. Maëlle wants to keep little Verso in there for eternity so that he can keep painting the painting, and so that Maëlle can stay inside of the painting and cope inside of the canvas, because she's grown so attached to the people inside of Lumiere in her new reborn life that she doesn't want to leave. And in the real world, she's a burn victim. She can't talk. She has the grief of being told that she's the reason her older brother is dead. And she's like, inside of the painting, I can be someone. Outside of the painting, I'm nobody. I barely even have control over my own body 100%. I don't want to go out there because then I have to deal with the grief, and I have to be somebody that's not whole. And Verso's like, you have the privilege of having a real family who loves you and having the ability to go out into the real world. I would take it if I was you. And so they end up fighting, and you have to make a choice. If you take Maëlle's side and you gommage Verso, painting stays open, the real Verso stays painting for the rest of eternity. And you get to the end, Gustave is brought back to life. Gustave's love interest, who gommaged in the at the end of the prologue, comes back to life. Lune and Ciel come back. Everybody comes back, and it seems happy. But then Maëlle has rebirthed painted Verso and is forcing him to live in the painting with them, even though he doesn't want to, so that she can act as if her older brother is still alive. And it's kind of implied that this is the bad ending. The other ending, if you side with Verso, is you gommage Maëlle, and you take the real Verso out of the universe. The real Verso fades away. The rest of his soul is gone. The fake Verso fades. You watch as Lune and Ciel fade, and all of the other characters you've gotten used to throughout the game fade away. And the canvas closes forever. The world is gone. The real world is back. Maëlle is back in Alicia's body. All of the entire family is back in their real body. And that end of the prologue and that end of the epilogue is them standing over the real Verso's grave, putting flowers on it. And Alicia sees in the distance that everyone you've played as inside of the canvas is waving goodbye to her. And that's where the game ends. It is a marvelous representation of grief and coping with reality and even addiction. And it is just so tragically and intricately well thought out. The bosses are interesting. Every character is deeply written as if they are the main character. It is just such a beautiful game all around. And if it doesn't win Game of the Year, it's just a robbery at point blank in the simplest way. I haven't played Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 because I wasn't a fan of the first one. I didn't like the combat. And I haven't played Death Stranding 2 because I didn't play the first Death Stranding. I stopped midway through because I got bored. So I can't really attest to how good those two stories are, but I've heard claims that those will be Game of the Year. I think Expedition 33 should be Game of the Year by a long shot. It's one of the best games I have played in a very long time. And if you are a gamer I would do yourself a favor and just get this game because it's only $50. Most games right now of that caliber are like 60 to 70. This one is cheaper and it's better than most of the ones that are normal price. If you have the funds to do so, do yourself a favor, get this game, play it all the way through, and come back and let me know what you think because it is an experience you will not forget. That's it for this video. Just wanted to share my thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.